And then here we're going to go into this Murray School Board meeting study session on equity. This was February 25th, 2021. And there were several things said in this meeting that we just want to go over and, give some background on those things. And
and this meeting was a 4-hour meeting.
Right.
This was something that the staff at the school district offices and, teachers and administrators were giving information to the school board and to anyone on the Zoom meeting to listen what was going on with regards to equity in the school
and
district.
to answer parent questions, because so many parents were like, what is going on?
Yeah, because they'd received emails responding from the school district, emails from us that are like, wait, that's totally different than what you're saying, or what you're not answering some of the questions.
Right. And as we discussed, we had just received the equity meeting minutes, and the district office and school board knew that we had received those meeting minutes. So they were trying to just explain what was going on with equity
Right.
to parents. And so
we're going to start with this first
one.
part, right? We have 5 parts to this.
So first we'll play the video. So we're just going to play little clips. And like we said, you can go to the district's YouTube page and watch this whole meeting yourself if you want, but we just have clips because we can't show 4 hours.
It's just long, and this is long.
I wanted to take a minute and share with the board the details surrounding the book that kind of kicked this whole discussion off, the book Call Me Max. This book was read in Mrs. Paul's 3rd grade classroom on Friday, January 8th. I just want to give you the details of that and then open it up for any questions that you might have for me. Friday after school, I was contacted by a parent asking about a book that was read about a boy named Max who used to be a girl. I was not aware of a book by that description being read, so I told the parent that I would look into it and find out what happened. After talking to Mrs. Paul, I found out that the book Call Me Max was brought to Mrs. Paul by a student in the class. This student asked if Mrs. Paul would read it. Mrs. Paul read through the book herself and then shared the book with her class. After reading the book, the student who brought the book said, "That's a true story." A student then asked a question about the picture of the author on the back of the book and how he could have a beard. Mrs. Paul answered the question by saying, "Science has made it possible for people to grow beards when they get older." One student shouted out, "I can't wait to grow a beard." Another student shouted out the word puberty, which some other students found to be funny, and Mrs. Paul asked them to stop and they moved on. I asked Mrs. Paul what she thought the class had learned from the book. She told me that the conversations had helped students to feel confident in themselves as well as be accepted. Mrs. Paul felt that students learned to have a sense of confidence in who they are and ability to accept others who may be different from themselves. This might be different from what you think or you feel, but that's okay, that we're all different and we all have strengths. Mrs. Paul also felt that they had good conversations about differences so that we can learn to understand each other better. In the coming days and weeks following the discussion, Mrs. Paul has heard students saying things like, "I'm a boy, but I like to paint my fingernails," and "I'm a girl, but I like to wear boy clothes." This makes Mrs. Paul and I feel proud when students voice these type of statements and own who they are.
That it came from somebody else, not a child. I don't know, just any more insight into that, just to clarify.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our initial hesitancy to be able to give a clear picture that we wanted to give was the privacy of the student who brought the book. So I would say it boils down to that at the beginning of it, when those calls started coming in, and as we were trying to figure out what had happened and how we can explain what happened and be clear without violating the privacy of the student who brought it. And then in further communication, there got to be a mix up with the books that are on our book bundle list, and then additional resources and things like that, where we were just trying to be clear and list all the books that we knew of that had been read. And then that's when I think we didn't communicate well enough, as far as this is a book bundle book, this is a book brought in by a classroom, and here's some books that we know of that have been used in class to kind of go towards the goal of creating a Horizon community where everyone is welcome and everyone is appreciated and seen. And then in sending out a couple other things that were for our planning purposes as a leadership team at Horizon, and kind of themes of what we wanted to talk about each month, those themes weren't broken out like in the chart. It wasn't broken out to where like the list of themes we were talking about as a faculty and then the list of themes that were talked about on the student level. So I would say that I feel pretty confident in the book bundles that we had and things that we messaged out early in October, and all those books that were posted on our website in October with all the lessons plans that the teachers use. And then in this case, where the book was brought in and then it was kind of something that was unexpected, and then I think in the attempt to triage it and to make sure that we were giving as much information out, that we could have done that in a more organized way.
Okay, so that was Whitney Anderson, the principal at Horizon Elementary, and she just gave the story of, her version of the story of what happened with Call Me Max. So we're just going to talk about that a little bit. So Whitney Anderson says, first, Ms. Paul said science made beards possible. Ms. Paul read the book before reading it to the class. The monthly pacing guide was a faculty themed schedule. She said they hadn't broken them apart. And then the books and lesson plans were posted on the website in October. So we're just going to go through and talk about those points.
Just a couple points.
So did the teacher say science has made it possible for people to grow beards when they get older, and had the teacher read the book before? So this is what a student came home saying. She had a puberty lesson at school. She told me in detail about the books that were read last week. She also told me she learned from her teacher that when people grow up, they can take special medicine to grow or not grow a beard if they really feel on the inside that they're supposed to, be a different gender. That's the text that I received. This was before we received any information from teachers or administrators. This is what children came home saying.
That if you are a boy and you feel like a girl inside, you can take medicine to grow a beard, or not to grow a beard if you're the other way around.
Right. And then here we have a quote from Doug Perry in the Salt Lake Tribune. He said, the teacher hadn't read the book before and deflected questions for the most part. And then you have Miss Anderson saying she read through the book and then read it to students. And this was, in my opinion, this was just her fixing the story because parents had pushed back on that, saying, why would a teacher read a book about transgenderism to a classroom full of 8-year-olds without having first read it herself? So the story just conveniently changes as the district gets pushed back on certain aspects of the story.
Right.
And then here's the email sent out originally by Sarah Paul, just talking about there was no discussion on puberty. And then the students are the ones who mentioned medicine, and they said, oh, after puberty. And so the story just keeps changing. And then she said the monthly pacing guide was
faculty theme schedule. Was
right.
it for the faculty or was it a classroom schedule? Well, when you look at it, it says circle back on whatever topic your class could
right.
use
So
more
this
of.
pertains to your class. This says class. This says, right, circle back whatever your class needs support on. And then here we have sexuality and gender and understanding differences. And parents said, because one of the main arguments they were making was Call Me Max is about gender. It's not about sexuality because there's laws on sexuality. But
But this is about gender, so
right.
we don't need to.
So parents pointed out that the pacing guide specifically said it's the equity theme schedule and it says sexuality right there. So you are speaking about sexuality with our students and you're not talking to parents to get consent or inform them about this. And so that was how they changed that part of the story. So were the books and lesson plans posted in October on the website? She specifically said that in the February 25th meeting, as you just heard. We're not going to play this again, but you can listen to that phone call on January 13th. And she said, I think in the future, we can do better with the communication and transparency piece. I would like to get our equity books on our website and make those available. So this is January 13th. She specifically told me that she wanted to get the equity books on the website. So they weren't on there on January 13th.
But then they tell the whole district that
That
it's
they were.
been on the school district website since October.
Right. And then here
I guess they can claim a little of that just with that reply to that.
to the Parent Square post, but they were not on the website.
But they were not on the website.
Right. So then on January 11th, we have this email from Whitney Anderson saying, because here's a parent on January 11th saying, I would like to get
list of
access
the
to that
books
list. And then Whitney says, I wonder if we can get the list published on our website. And Vanessa Job says, oh, that's an idea. I could put all this on the website.
So this is January 2021.
Right.
And that's 4 months later.
And then here we have January 13th again. We are working on setting up our website to list the specifics that you've asked for. And then just an email speaking about not getting information out. And then that we are wanting to post on our website again, January. And then here's an email from a parent. We are not sure who this is, but she sent this to Miss Covington, or he or she. She said, Miss Anderson put a positive spin on that reading of the book. The reason this book was found out to have been read to students is because a good number of third graders went home and shared with their parents how uncomfortable they were with the reading of this book. I hope you can decipher between truth and lies. What Miss Anderson shared about the reception of this book was a lie. If you are interested in truth, talk to the children that were there, not a principal that is lying to you. And then she said, this is February 27th. She said, please send a list of the books in the equity book bundle to me. Thank you. Because she was having trouble getting that list from Miss Anderson. So here we have this added to the timeline. And we're going to go over this, like Laurel said, 5 times. So we'll just look at this timeline and see how this plays out. So the next part too is
So this is another section of that meeting. Darren Dean is going to talk about the Equity Council. So let's just listen to him.
At no time was the purpose of this council to exclude parents. The goal of the council was always to involve stakeholders at every level of the school system, including parents and guardians. In fact, while the Equity Book Bundle project has been presented in conjunction with the work of the Equity Council, it is important to note the council did not create, review, or distribute any of the materials related to the book bundles, nor implement any kind of professional development accompanying this project or otherwise.
So just to offer clarity on that, excuse me, what Mr. Dean said was that the Equity Council didn't create the books. They didn't have the plan to roll out the books. That was not in their purview. Crystal clear, that was not an Equity Council charge at all. They, of course, they're supportive of that. They're supportive of having books and diverse titles in their libraries, but that was not an Equity Council charge. That was not something that they developed.
If a child in my classroom brings up racism or LGBTQ, how do I handle that? How do I handle these topics that these children come to our classrooms every day with and have these questions, and our employees, and that safety, and that it's okay to have these conversations. And our educators, they know their bounds. They are instructed, they're required every year to sign off on the Utah Educator Professional Ethics Standards. They are hyper aware of what they say and their influence on children. And they want to make sure that everyone has a place and that everyone feels part of it. That's where I get it. I mean, you can parse words and say, no, this means that or means that, but that's really the intent.
One thing we want to be clear is that Darren Dean says the Equity Council had no intent to exclude parents. They were not involved in the equity book bundles, and they were not involved in planning any professional development. So did the Equity Council include parents?
this is from the meeting minutes from March 3rd, 2020.
So it says we want parents who are interested in the issues, and if you have other names, send them to Darren. So it was only certain parents who agree with their issues who could be on there. And then here's the list again of who is on the Equity Council, and there was one parent included.
And this is that parent, Juliet Reynolds. This was taken from the Pride conference. She was one of the speakers in the conference. And so it just talks about how she has a gay son and then a non-binary son. And
She does a lot of
she,
work with.
yeah, studied gender studies and is working with Murray School District to like create inclusive practices and policies. So that's how she became a representative on the Equity Council.
And then it says in their meeting minutes in January that they need to figure out how the district and the board wants to go about adding parents. Maybe next year, likely, due to COVID this year, we can't really.
Right. So at this point, the Equity Council has been working for around a year, and they're still saying maybe next year we'll include parents. But they've already made huge changes to our district with the memo, and so parents should have been involved at this point.
Anyway, and then did the Equity Council plan equity book bundles? Well,
March 3rd.
March 3rd, 2020. So this is a year before that. Susan and Kara will make a diverse book list for the elementary schools and send it out to the committee. So they also in September say they have this Horizon Equity book boxes. They
Show their themes.
They talk about the themes, the monthly themes for, and then here are the lists from the King's English Bookstore, and then
Their student extension ideas on the Google Classroom. So that like ongoing curriculum, making more lists, it sounds like.
and then here's the
The equity book bundles, the original list.
And then on their equity minutes, they talk about that they have professional development PD for teachers that are paired with the equity book bundles, and
other schools have ordered the books.
and they also have professional development sessions that go along with each monthly theme. So they also talk about that the cost of the equity books are $2,000, and they'll help with the cost. But if they had nothing to do with equity books, why do they care about how much they cost?
Right, yeah, why are they discussing this in an equity meeting? And then here we have Vanessa presenting in the Pride Conference, and she lists the equity book bundles as one of the successes of the Equity Council.
So, and then did the Equity Council plan professional development?
Again, from March 3rd, the first meeting.
So Darren will ask the teaching and learning team for professional development time for equity and inclusion issues, and then they all will explore the professional development opportunities that would,
I'm sorry.
no, it's okay, that would like to have and possibly look into options. So at the beginning of the start of the Equity Council, they're talking about professional development. And then again, they're paired with the equity book bundles and the monthly theme. So then we get,
And then here, this is November 20th. We have Robin is planning cultural PD in January.
for the
Macmillan-
secondary schools, that's the junior highs and
Right.
high schools.
So that's Robin Williams. She's planning that. And then Macmillan is having gender identity professional development November 20th. PD needs around the district. PD days for equity this year, next year. Admin PDs are immediate PD needs. So all of these are in their minutes talking about professional development. Here we have an email from Job to, it's a draft for a parent, but she sent it to Whitney Anderson. And she's talking about, we offer professional development for teachers with our Black Lives Matter and equity book bundle. She specifically says this. And then here we have Kara Cerise sending to Darren Dean. She's talking about LGBTQ and professional development trainers. And she redacted who all of these people are, but here are three presenters she knows. We know who several of these are, just using our own investigative skills. But so she's, as the chair of the Equity Council, helping suggest professional
More
development
professional
trainers.
development.
And then again, from the Pride Conference, we have Vanessa Job speaking of their professional development as one of their successes. She says for next school year, but they had also been doing it this school year.
Right.
And,
And
she did speak about that verbally in the video that we showed.
Right. So, and then we are going to just show you, we got, as part of our grandma requests, all of the slides that have to do with the professional development that they've done
Right.
at Horizon, at Macmillan, at the high school.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to,
And so just as a side note, we as parents watching this February 25th board meeting and hearing Darren Dean say this stuff, I, speaking for myself, was like, what? I was so confused because I had
because
read
they're
all
like,
this.
we don't have anything to do with it. And you're like, we have all of these grandma request minutes of those meetings that say we've done all these things.
Yeah. So so you'll see all that we have right now, and it's just very confusing why they would even say that in the meeting. So here's language of professional development on how to be anti-racist. This was a professional development by Vanessa Job. Here, Vanessa Job did this book club with her
Horizon faculty.
on how to be an anti-racist. There's Ibram Kendi. Welcome. She's basically teaching critical race theory. And then we have this August 2020 professional development on race given to all the teachers at Horizon. And again, you guys can pause these if you'd like to learn more, or you can go to our website and look at these. Here's some,
So here's some examples of children's books, The Battle Injustices,
and
which we've seen some of those already, but we have a couple coming up.
so she's telling teachers these are some ideas for books you can read with equity. And then Teaching Tolerance website. And here's a lesson plan for Harvey Milk for 5th grade, which I think these were also shared in faculty meetings as ideas.
These were like, this is what you can do in your class as a lesson plan. So
They over and over you see this theme, what is my identity and who am I? Asking children to question, who am I? What is my identity? And they show like these pride or rainbow capes and telling them you can make a cape. And then this book is anti-racist lesson plan. Again, who am I? What are my identities?
one thing that I've noted in learning about the identities, it doesn't talk about how people are responsible for like
Their behavior,
their behavior
or becoming,
and
their best self. Or,
yeah, it's just about what groups you belong to and how you identify in relation to those groups, if you're victimized or
Powerful, privileged.
And so that is really
as stated right here. Are there parts of you that hold power and privilege? What about, are you responsible? Can you do something to make your life better or to help others or to develop your talents or to gain better, more knowledge and greater skills? No, it's just what group do you identify with and do you hold power and privilege in that group or are you oppressed?
yeah. So here's another professional development. Okay, so that's talking about how the professional development had to do with equity book bundles. And then this one's about professional development on sexuality and gender in October. So they're talking about intersectionality again with
Kimberly Crenshaw.
Crenshaw.
Stuff from the state school board, stuff in Utah, some videos. And this book, It Feels Good to Be Yourself. We saw this in professional development and later we'll show that. Again, Julian as a Mermaid was used in several classes. Pride, Welcoming Schools, which has many other books. And then local resources, we see FAM, which we've seen with Kara, referenced several times. Additional resources for parents. Again, there's Kyle Myers, who was the keynote speaker at the Pride Conference. And then on November 20th, McMillan Elementary had a professional development on gender given by Cody Colvin from FAM. This is Cody Colvin from the FAM website. And we'll just click through these because there's a lot of them. Oh, so this is Cody Colvin was helping with their policies, and we found that in our grandma request that he was helping with creating policy on discrimination in Murray School District. Here's the intersectionality again. And then mirrors and windows, we see this throughout many times. Again, some books, some of the books.
Okay. Well, then there's the secondary professional development that we got all of the copies of the training that they did for the junior high and high schools, and it was all on racism and safe spaces, brave spaces, social justice standards, your racial bias and grading scales. This is another framing brave conversations about race and ethnicity.
Reject colorblindness.
Right.
And then here we have other equity professional developments that we tried to access but could not. Grandma requested these trainings from Listening with Care. The response was that these are copyrighted material and it's a non-record, so parents don't
have access to what the teachers were trained on.
and they don't have to give it to us. And then he says at the bottom, however, in the interest of
Transparency.
yeah, we will seek permission from the copyright owners. And then he followed up with, they did not give their permission to send you their materials. But for the ones that we were able to access, you can come in and look at them, but it'll cost $175. So we were like, never mind.
We already paid. We already paid a lot of money. We'll get into that too.
Yeah. And then here's another training where it was all redacted, which I'm not sure why that would be. It's not information that should be redacted, but
it's interesting that the whole thing is redacted.
yeah. So here we go. This is on that meeting. Darren Dean says, and Darren Dean and Missy Hamilton say the Equity Council did no professional development, did not do book bundles. And then here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 professional developments that we were able to access in less than a year of the Equity Council existing. So definite contradictions there with what Darren Dean had said and what we had found from our evidence.
Yep. And then, so this is the third part that we wanted to talk about for the equity, the study session.
In this part, Robin Williams and Missy Hamilton give a slideshow about equity. They talk about why it's necessary and positive for our schools. They speak explicitly about racism several times and then go on to claim that equity has nothing to do with racism. So here's some slides on racism. We underlined and highlighted.
So they talk about, stopping racism, denouncing racism.
And then here's the video.
Equity is a misunderstanding, I believe. In light of recent events, it is misunderstood to be synonymous with perhaps racism. It may be synonymous with gender. It might be synonymous with, say, quotas. It might even be synonymous with sex education or reading of books. But really, it has everything to do with access and opportunity.
Interesting that Missy says equity is misunderstood to be synonymous with all of these things, but it's really about access and opportunity. And, just from what we've shown from our grandma requests, I don't think equity is misunderstood to be synonymous with those things, but
like they mention all the racism in that study session, and then they say it has nothing to do with changing racism. And it's just so confusing of these two statements.
right. It's very confusing. And having looked into things as we had, it was really confusing for us, but a lot of parents were just really confused by this presentation. So here we have again on the timeline, just that
Just
we,
saying that they say that equity doesn't have anything to do with racism and sexism and stuff like that. It's just access, but it's all about that. So
okay, so part 4, we have, again, with this slideshow presentation from Missy Hamilton and Robin Williams, it shows statistics with white students appearing more successful. As a communications major, we did a lot of studies in college, and one of the first things you learn about studies is that correlation does not equal causation, and these studies showed no evidence for causation. However, they end with saying, this proves we need equity in our district. So here's some of the surveys and
in our graduation
statistics
rates,
that they showed,
right?
and all these are the gaps they speak about.
And they really pointed out that there are less people of color in AP classes and honors classes.
Right. And they just imply that it's because of their skin color, where really,
Well, we know there are so many other reasons why people don't take honors and AP classes.
right. I didn't take AP classes in high school because I didn't want to. I simply didn't want to. And
Right.
choice is a big part in this, what students want
Yeah,
to.
and some kids have jobs and everything, and they don't want to have all that extra schoolwork. And
Right.
there are just a lot of assumptions that get put in there without
Without
like
knowing.
backing it up with actual data.
Right. So here's what they say following this presentation.
We obviously, as many know, we've received many comments from parents in the community. Some of those comments have indicated that they feel there is no need for any form of equity counsel, equity guidance, or focus, and that we should focus just on reading, writing, arithmetic. Based on the numbers that you presented to us tonight, do we feel like continuing to do the same thing will make really any significant impact in those issues?
I would probably re-ask that question based on what the data that we presented tonight. Why would we not be able to continue equity conversations?
Any other questions?
So that kind of plays out to me, kind of like a,
We really need equity because of all those statistics. They say we're not meeting all of the needs, which I don't know. We do want to look at actual numbers, but I don't think that what they presented was causation.
it doesn't prove any causation, but Jaren Cooper came to the conclusion that, yep, we need equity. And this clearly indicates that. So here's again on the timeline. And then how does equity bridge the gap? Is this about academic excellence for all?
So we have learned this year at Murray High School that there are some classes that have actually just lowered their grading scales in order to make it so that this is all about equity according to the teachers that are doing this, so that they can, have more people pass their class.
Right. So essentially you can pass with 20% in zoology in Murray High, and then just these lowered standards.
Maybe that's just one example that we're like, that's concerning. Like, we really want our kids to know what they're learning and not just float through and just pass a class without knowing anything.
Because the standards are lower, not because they're actually learning.
Right.
Okay, so part 5. This is Murray School Board voting to move all the equity book bundles to the elementary school libraries, and they're going to discuss why they do that. But just going back to what Whitney Anderson had promised us, saying that, this is going to go through the community council and parents are going to have a voice on these books, and none of that was followed through. So we'll just watch that in this meeting.
Is it the consensus of the board to put the books back in the library at this time? And again, we don't have school tomorrow, so the soonest they could be in would be Monday.
Monday?
Well, in my mind, that right there, I keep going back to what you guys officially told me things are called. Intellectual Freedom Act is like the Civil Rights Act. Like, we are obliged
Like
to.
we really don't have a choice.
Yeah, that's how I take that. And being a federal act, that is what we need to do.
I think they need to go back in the library.
Yeah, so I think that we're trying to make a decision tonight, or at least a supportive decision of putting the books back in the library tonight. Do you have a preference to that? Yes or no? I guess, Glo, do you feel comfortable with the book list being back into the library?
Okay, so they moved those back into the library. They talked about an Intellectual Freedom Act, which, as far as we've looked into it, they seem to be speaking of the First Amendment, because it's not a federal act. I'm not sure what that is, but they say they have no choice but to put those back into the library. So did other schools have the equity book bundles, knowing that they were moved back into the libraries? Yes, we know of 4 other elementary schools that bought the book bundles as well. So that's Vanessa Job to the Horizon teachers. And then in the meeting minutes, she said other schools have ordered the books. And we have an email from Covington in January telling all the elementary school principals to move the books, to pause the equity book bundles, regardless of what school. So it was not just a Horizon thing. And here's an email from Covington to a parent just saying that different schools have those book bundles. Why did Murray City School District vote to put the equity books into our children's school libraries? And again, we go back to this email from Doug Perry to Jennifer Covington, where he's saying he's tracked the negative stories and he's worried about it and doesn't want this narrative perceived that the suspension is perceived as permanent. So they wanted to get these books moved so that the suspension would
go away.
So here we added that to the timeline.
Okay, so also during this February 25th board meeting, Superintendent Covington and the school board created 4 Murray Opportunities School Advisory Councils, or MOSACs, to replace the Equity Council, but we have not seen these councils ever been instituted in our district. We do have a literature review committee.
And we'll discuss
We'll
that.
discuss that.
But so they did disband the Equity Council and replace them, but these new councils have never been used or implemented in our district. And then after the February 25th board meeting, I exchanged some emails with my school board representative, and I kind of hesitated on putting these in the slideshow, but ultimately we felt like it was important to show the interactions with the school board and why these issues are coming up in Murray School District, because it's not just the district office, it's also the school board. We need to make sure that people are taking a stand for our students. So again, not going to read through all of these, but you can read through them yourself and pause if you would like to. And I was just like asking her, why didn't you ask any of the people about our questions that we had told you before? And we elected you and we expected you to represent our viewpoint. And she basically said, I've never said you weren't lied to, but questioning the district administration in the study session about that didn't serve a purpose. And then she pointed out that I needed to be careful because there are a group of women in this valley who are very well organized and very well funded that are pushing into every public office that they can. And their views are on the extreme left. You found them on the front row of every protest last summer and in the headlines frequently. And then I basically just said that the viewpoint in the school board meeting was that students were thriving after this book was read. No one talked about the viewpoint that some students were confused.
And the parents that had written letters about how their students had come home concerned about this reading and how maybe they were wrong to be a boy or girl, and that it's very hard to understand that as an 8-year-old.
Right. And I also said that school board meetings are public so that the community can know what is going on in the district. And the public wants to know the full story, not just a narrow slice of perspective. And just that there were a lot of letters from parents who were concerned about these issues. And we think that the majority of parents really want school to be about academics, not about these social, emotional, equity topics. And we need our school board to pay attention, to speak up, to push back, not just accept things without saying no. And just that, parents feel worried pushing back. It is hard to push back on these issues because we do get bullied. We get called names, and it's not an easy thing to do. And a lot of times people don't want to push back because they don't want to be the villain. The school board doesn't want to be the villain. The district office doesn't want to be the villain. And so parents have to step up when they're concerned about these issues. And then the parents become the villain. And nobody wants to be in that role. But that's why we elect our school board members. That's why we trust.
That's kind of why they're there, to be the local representative of our area.
Right?
Right?
We elect them. So they should represent us.
Yeah. But somehow that's not always happening.
Okay, so on March 2nd, Greg and Laurel and I met with the district office and the Murray School Board, just a couple of the members. And then here's a few quotes that we're going to go over from that meeting. We did record the entire meeting, but
So did the district office.
Right, both of us
people.
did. They have it and we have it. And so we're just going to play some of that. This is right before the meeting. Jen Covington was asking some questions about Miss Paul and what books were read. And in blue, I have Whitney Anderson underlined. And one of the things Whitney Anderson says is, all the parents who are still upset don't have students in the class. I'm not sure how they can speak to how students in the classroom felt when their student wasn't in the classroom, which clearly we're talking with many parents here. And a lot of the parents we're working with had students in the classroom, and those students were confused after that book was read.
Right.
Okay, so here's this. We'll just play it. And on the side, we have who's speaking. Do you know what anti-racist really means?
Right, it's kind of just an opposite way of saying I'm racist.
No, it's not, though.
One of the emails you said, I can't tell whether you said there was no investigation or we're not investigating. Was there an investigation?
Into the book coming in? Oh, yes, absolutely.
And what did that entail?
That we did look into that. So we went in and we talked with Vice Principal Joe as well as with Principal Anderson. They did their internal investigation and then we worked through that.
Okay, so you let Principal Anderson and Vanessa Joe manage that, and you believe what they told you?
Principal Anderson, yes.
Okay.
So-
And this is just for my personal, so if it were different, and I don't know, I am believing exactly what was told to us we have to stand by administrators. What
Well,
would
you have to
be
stand by them when we have proof that they're lying to us.
And you represent parents.
I guess I'd say, I don't know if we have proof. If you have something that says something different, emails. What's that? You have the emails.
Well, Jen has the email.
Right, I do have emails. And so, yes, and again, the way that was handled was not correct. They thought they were protecting the student. They were worried about the student. Not correct. We have owned that that is not the way we do it.
Right, but you're still trusting Miss Anderson and Dr. Joe that this story is correct based on their investigation, which clearly they have every reason to say their investigation checks out because it benefits them.
We're extending ourselves now and saying, can you help us in the broader picture of helping student success through opportunity? And can we work together? Can we hopefully mend the distrust? Can we work through that? Can we give this a shot and work together?
I mean, those are definitely connected. I would say if you want to mend the trust, then tell the district the true story about what happened with Call Me Max. Tell what happened to teachers, that we were told these were part of the book bundles program, that we were deceived, that the book bundles program was paused because these books were a part of it. Call the Salt Lake Tribune, tell that story. If you really want to mend our trust, if you really want to mend my trust, go to the district, tell the true story. Go to the papers, tell the true story. Come, email us, my classroom on Parent Square, and tell us the true story, because even the message that I got from Principal Anderson was not the true story. She didn't even mention, and let me tell you.
Why it's not
When
the
she
true
says
story?
the true story, she's not talking about whether or not the student brought it in. She's not, I think, don't mean to speak for you, but she means she received emails from administrators and teachers that were blatantly false, not poor communication.
Yeah, that's the true story.
You're saying they said emails that the teachers did bring in the book.
They said
They
those
said we
books
had every
were,
right to read this because of the district memo. These books are part of the equity book bundle list.
they were developmentally appropriate and wonderful for your children. Those are all the things that parents were told. And then, based on what people hear in the paper, you've got Kat Martinez giving interviews and saying,
Well, I
Yeah.
can't control.
I can't control it,
right.
but she's basing it off of what was told to the Salt Lake Tribune by Doug Perry, which you do control. You do control that narrative.
I don't know that we do. I mean, we get so many different quotes or
Well,
interviews, and they choose what to print.
But what is told to the parents and the
I don't think I can rectify anything in the media. I'll be honest. I just think that is not something that can be rectified. All understand that we're all human beings. That we all belong to that one classification of being human beings. And I think there's a lot to be learned. And the later in life that I get, the more I understand. I feel like I'm understanding how important the golden rule is. And if you just treat one another like we want to be treated, there's a lot of power in that.
Okay, so we just highlighted those quotes. Anti-racist is not just an opposite way of saying I'm a racist. Anti-racist refers to critical race theory, and it's just we feel it's a problem when the school district or the school board implements these ideas without really understanding what they mean. And then Jen Covington having Whitney Anderson and Vanessa Job perform an internal investigation on their own story, and then trusting that investigation. Clearly, that's not a real investigation. And then Scott Bushnell saying, "Let's mend the distrust, but we can't rectify the story told to the media." They could rectify that story, but
Well, you can't always control what the media says, but you can control what you give to them.
right, they can rectify the quotes that they gave.
Yeah.
And then when Scott Bushnell mentioned that equity is about the golden rule, all of us, we were like, this is not about the golden rule, but we were just tired
Well,
of.
we believe that the golden rule is exactly what we're trying to have happen.
Right, we want the golden
that
rule.
That would be great if that really what equity was about. But equity is not about treating people
As you would be treated.
They talk about that equity is about treating people as they choose to be treated, or
as they would like to be treated.
And you have to guess.
As you see right here in 5th grade lesson from Second Step, this is second step right here. One good way to think about being respectful is the golden rule, considering how someone would like to be treated and then treating them that way. But what if the way someone wants to be treated is different from the way you want to be treated? I want you to take a few moments to think to yourself about what you could do if someone's idea or preferences are different from yours. How can you still act respectfully toward him or her? And then let students think about that. And then if you believe everyone should be treated respectfully, give a thumbs up. And so, no, this is not about the golden rule. This is about reading people's minds and
guessing if they want to be treated a certain way or not.
Right. And also, if you want to be treated and you believe that the right way to be treated is with truth and honesty, but another person says, I don't want truth and honesty. I want you to just give me whatever I want at this moment. Is that really the right way to treat them? According to this manual, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It's not always healthy to treat others the way they want to be treated. If somebody wants 5,000 pounds of candy, if a 5-year-old wants just candy all day long, you don't give that to them just because that's what they want.
Yeah, and same with people with addictions. That you don't just keep giving them stuff that feed an addiction.
Right. So anyway, at this point, we asked the superintendent to please investigate the incident for herself. She said she would, and the next day she emailed us and said, I have personally spoken to the Horizon parent and confirmed that their child did bring the book, Call Me Max, to class. So we add this to the timeline, March 2nd. Our timeline's getting pretty full, so we're built an extra one. And then on March 4th, there was a school board meeting where the district requested parent feedback, and there were 53 letters from the community who were troubled with this equity agenda, and there were 9 letters in favor of equity that were read. So here's the district email that went out talking about the 2 board meetings in regards to equity. And then we put in a few letters that were read, which we're not going to read, but you can read those if you'd like to. And then this was regarding Black Lives Matter signs in the school board, in the schools and classrooms. And this was an email that one parent had sent in regarding that.